This link is for fifth grade going along with the story Skunk Scout. You go ahead and make sure your Treasures textbook is turned to page 672 and 673. This is a good place of where we're going to begin. Of course, before we begin reading the story and talking about our comprehension strategy that we're working on this week, let's go ahead and go through the vocabulary words we've encountered in this unit. First one we have is guaranteed. Guaranteed means made sure or certain. Supervise. When you supervise, you watch over and direct what is going on. Frustrated. Frustrated means to have feelings or discouragement. Coordination. Coordination is the ability of parts or things to work together well. Ease. Ease means to move slowly and carefully. Scenery. Scenery is the site of a place or region. Bundle. A bundle is a group of items held together. Fused. Fused means blended or united. Scout. A person who is sent out to get information. Hawk. A bird of prey with a hooked beak, long claws, broad wings, and keen sight. Campsite. A place where people live outdoors in tents or other shelters. Gear. Equipment needed for some purpose such as camping. And alibi. Excuses. Alright, with that being said, if you go ahead and direct your attention to page 672, we're going to talk a little bit about the genre that we've encountered in the story this week. This week the genre is called realistic fiction. And realistic fiction has real life settings, well-developed characters, and realistic problems and solutions. And then remember this week's comprehension skill or strategy is going to be making judgments. And remember, when we're talking about making judgments, we're going to actually use the story details to form opinions about the characters and their actions. So we're going to use that judgment chart to help us do that. Just remember that when you make a judgment, you form an opinion about the value of something or whether someone's actions were appropriate or not. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The story, once again, is Skunk Scout. It's by Lawrence Yep, and it's illustrated by Winston Trang. Teddy lives in San Francisco, Chinatown, and loves city life. When Teddy reluctantly accepts an invitation to go camping with his Uncle Curtis and little brother Bobby, he has no idea what adventure Mother Nature has in store for them. Mount Tamaulipas kept growing bigger and bigger as we drove along. I thought some of the skyscrapers in San Francisco had been big, but they were toys compared to it. You wouldn't think anyone could miss something that huge, but our uncle did. Look, boys, the hawk's diving. I thought he had told us everything possible about hawks. But he began spouting more. Oh, too bad, Bobby said. He missed. I wonder what he was going for. The hawk wasn't the only one that needed better aim. As we shot past the exit, I leaned over the back of my uncle's seat. Uncle Curtis, you should have probably turned back there. Bobby rattled his map as he examined it. Really? Bobby, you're supposed to be the navigator. I sighed. Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby said. How could you miss the sign? I asked. It's as big as a car. Now, no harm, Uncle Curtis shrugged. He left the freeway the first chance he got and then re-entered the freeway heading south. I'm going to go ahead and stop there real quick. Now, Uncle Curtis, Bobby, and Teddy react differently to the events that take place on their way to camp. Use the details from the selection to compare and contrast the reactions. Well, Uncle Curtis and Bobby seem to be much calmer about the whole trip than Teddy does. Teddy gets upset when they miss the exit on the freeway because Bobby and Uncle Curtis get distracted by looking at wildlife from the car. After they miss the exit a second time, I'm a little worried about that. Teddy starts issuing orders from the back seat so they will not miss it again. Bobby leaned against the shoulder strap. Well, we'll get it this time. But just as we got near the correct exit, Uncle Curtis suddenly twisted in his seat. There's a rabbit, he pointed. Where? Bobby asked, craning his neck. And as we shot past, I moaned. Oh, we missed it again. Uncle Curtis glanced into the rearview mirror. Man, that came up faster than I thought. I put a hand on his shoulder. Okay, this time no hawks, no rabbits, just exit signs, okay? Uncle Curtis gave a thumbs up. Gotcha. And don't you dare say anything except navigational stuff, I warned Bobby. This time we got off at the right exit, and they began to wonder how Uncle Curtis found his own bathroom at home. Maybe Aunt Ethel puts up signs. Now, do you think Teddy's actions on this page, 675, were appropriate? And why or why not? Okay, let's think about this. The action that's going on here is that Teddy insists that his uncle and brother pay attention to the map and directions. He seems very bossy. Now, do you feel that those actions are accurate? If they're appropriate or not appropriate? Well, let's talk a little bit about the judgment here. Well, we know that Teddy is frustrated, okay? He's frustrated by the way Bobby and Uncle Curtis keep missing the exit. He takes appropriate action. Now, if Teddy doesn't say anything, they're going to miss the exit once again. So instead of that happening, they go ahead and they make sure that that doesn't happen. With that being said, let's go ahead and turn the page. The ranger at the entrance gave us a map of Mount Tumulus with our campsite marked. Thanks, Uncle Curtis said. He didn't even glance at it, but threw it in the back seat. I can figure out the way. Now the road slanted up steeply and wound around and round the mountain. It seemed to take forever before we pulled into a parking lot on the top of the mountain. Now Bobby glanced around, puzzled. Uncle Curtis? I think we've run out of road. Now Uncle Curtis rubbed his chin. We must have gone past the campgrounds. I haven't been to this one before. It's beautiful up here, though, Bobby said, looking around. It's like we're on top of the world. However, my stomach was growling, insisting that lunch was a lot more important than the scenery. I dived into all of our gear. It was like mining for coal, but I found the ranger's map. Here, I said, passing over the seat to Uncle Curtis. He examined it sideways. I can't make heads or tails out of this crummy map. You'd think that with all the taxes we paid, we'd get a better one. I reached over his shoulder and turned it the correct way. I think it goes like this. I traced the route back to the road to our campsite. Oh, yeah, right, he said, scratching his head. I see what I did wrong. But he really didn't. We almost wound up at the ranger's booth again. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Now, compare the events in the story with travel experiences that you may have had. Does the story seem as if it could really happen? And why or why not? Well, the idea that people often get lost when they travel to a strange place or have difficulty reading a map, this could really truly happen. So the events in the story do seem as if they really could happen in real life. Now, Uncle Curtis was good at one thing. It was making up alibis. I guess he'd had a lot of practice from getting lost all the time. They really ought to mark the campsite better, he grumbled. Well, we're getting to see a lot of the mountain, Bobby said. He always was trying to find the silver lining. Big deal. I would rather have had a meal. Let me help, I said. I looked at took the road map from Uncle Curtis. Just drive slowly. I managed to get us to the parking lot of the campgrounds. Tents dotted the slope under the tree like a rag quilt. It's crowded, I said. With a little luck, someone would have taken our reserved spot. But none of them are on the Fun Express, Uncle Curtis said. When he had parked, he took the map from me and jumped out of the car. This way, boys, for the beginning of your great adventure. We followed him up the dirt trail, from the parking lot to the patch of some trees. Uncle Curtis stopped. This is it, he declared, folding the map into a neat little square. The great outdoors. Now, as I kicked one of the many rocks on the ground, I didn't see what was so great about it. Isn't fun supposed to be less lumpy? My parents are always scolding me about being so messy. However, they should have seen Mother Nature. There were all those pebbles and leaves littering the dirt. Would have tidied up a little, especially for paying guests. Satisfied, Uncle Curtis surveyed the site. All this fresh air, it's guaranteed to make you feel so tired you won't even notice any of the rocks. I think you could just get as tired from breathing bus fumes. However, I kept my mouth shut and helped unload the station wagon. Though it was a very cloudy day, It was still warm and muggy. Almost everyone was in a t-shirt and shorts. However, Bobby and I were wearing our usual clothes from San Francisco weather, sweatshirts and corduroy pants. The corduroy made a flapping sound when the trouser legs rubbed together. Soon we were both sweating. In San Francisco, the thermostat was set to a sensible 60 degrees or so. Not like this oven. So finally, we took off our sweatshirts and tied the sleeves around our waist. I'm going to stop right there. Why do you think Teddy seems so angry about everything? Why do you think he's so angry? And how can rereading maybe this section help you clarify? Well, rereading obviously is going to clarify because you're going to be able to recall that the introduction states that Teddy loves the city life and he reluctantly accepts an invitation to go camping. So even before things start going wrong, Teddy did not want to really go along on this trip. So no wonder he's so negative about everything that happens. I was glad grandmother wasn't around. She would have made us keep them on so we wouldn't catch cold. Now as we worked, dust got on everything. It was all over my clothes. It was in my mouth. I felt like I was being buried alive. It didn't seem to bother Uncle Curtis, though. He was humming happily as he unrolled the army supply tent, and then he laid out the tent stakes where he wanted them. Finally, he took out an army shovel and with a short handle. Unfolding it, he put it together quickly. Now I'll demonstrate the fine art of putting up a tent, he said. Kneeling, he used the flat of the shovel blade to hammer the stake into the ground. Me next, Bobby said eagerly. You want to try everything, don't you? Uncle Curtis grinned, and he surrendered the shovel. I knew my little brother, so I stepped back, and Bobby thought the energy could always make up for lack of coordination. Uncle Curtis, though, made the mistake of staying close to supervise. He almost lost a kneecap when Bobby whacked the tent stake and missed. Easy there, Uncle Curtis warned him as he stumbled back. Most of the time I try to get someone else to do all the work, but I saw another chance to prove I was just as good as my little brother. Let me have a turn, I said, holding out my hand. I guess Uncle Curtis figured Bobby could take forever. Let Teddy try to do that. You can help me get the tent ready. But I want to do it, Bobby complained. Uncle Curtis rubbed his head. The sooner we set up camp, the sooner I can show you around. Isn't that what's really important? Bobby grudgingly handed over the shovel to me and helped Uncle Curtis roll the tent itself. Now the ground was a lot harder than it looked, but lifting all those boxes in the store sure gave me muscles, so I hammered away until I got the stakes in. It took all three of us to put up the tent. I still thought it leaned a little when we were done. Uncle Curtis inspected the tent ropes carefully. He acted as though they were the cables holding up the Golden Gate Bridge. Finally, though, he nodded his head in approval. That looks good. And when he had stowed out our gear inside, I said, I'm hungry. Let's eat. We've gotten used to eating Spam, Bobby explained. When you ride the Fun Express, you fine dine first class, Uncle Curtis boasts, as he went over to the ice chest in the shadow of the big tree. He squatted down and undid the lid's clasp. I brought hot dogs and hamburgers. I'll make you boys a feast. And when he raised the lid, fog rolled out around him. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. Do you think Uncle Curtis's actions are appropriate, or should he have let Bobby continue to try and hammer the stakes in the ground? And then I want you to go ahead and explain your answer. Well, let's think about the action here, okay? So what was it? Uncle Curtis becomes impatient when Bobby needs help hammering the stakes into the ground. He asks Teddy to take over. Do you think this was an appropriate or inappropriate action? And then explain to me why. Well, think about it. At first, Uncle Curtis seems pleased that Bobby wants to help, but as soon as it appears that Bobby may need some instruction and supervision, he wants Teddy to take over. Part of the experience of camping is learning new things. But Uncle Curtis seems to be impatient, so with that being said, we can say that Uncle Curtis's actions are inappropriate. He should have taken the time to show Abby how to hammer the stakes into the ground properly. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and conclude this link, and then we'll pick up in another link.